I, 24 female, have a sister, 35, and she has a teen daughter. Her daughter started rebelling and being a teenager. By being a teenager, I don't mean stealing. I mean being mouthy or thinking she's invincible and knows better than everyone. But recently, she's gotten sticky fingers. She's been banned from the mall in our neighborhood, and she was suspended from school for taking a girl's phone, and she's even tried to pawn her mother's wedding ring. I don't like my niece at my house for this reason. I've worked too hard for my things to be stolen. 2 weeks ago, I noticed the patio door was unlocked, and I make sure I lock all my doors before I leave. My fiance suggested we get cameras, so we put cameras in the house. Last week, Wednesday, my fiance and I went to look at wedding venues, and we were gone all day. When we got back, I only had to unlock the bottom lock to get into the house, so we checked the camera. Sure enough, my niece and her friends somehow picked the lock on the window, and she was in our house for hours with 2 guys. They took some money from my purse, 2 of my fiance's Rolex watches, and my grandmother's wedding ring that she left for me when she passed away last year from cancer. They were eating snacks and watching TV, shoes on our table and couch, just like they live here and this is normal. I called my sister and told her what happened, and that my niece had 2 days to give me everything back, or I'd call the police, and she said she'd handle it. Thursday comes around, nothing. Friday comes around, nothing. So I called the police, showed them the video, and filed a report. I got a call later from my sister, crying and screaming that I should have told her beforehand. I told her I gave her 2 days to come up with the stolen items, and I heard nothing back. I told her I was going to call the police. She's lucky I gave her grace for 2 days. My mom called me and said, "You don't have kids, so you don't understand." I told her it doesn't matter if I have kids or not. She committed a crime and brought 2 random people in my house. My safety's in danger. I don't get the whole "you should have warned me." Warned her for what? So she could hide her? I don't think I did anything wrong. My sister and her husband said they wouldn't be coming to our wedding, and I told them the invitation was revoked when your daughter stole my things. I've been getting threats from her husband. I want to block them, but my fiance says to keep all the evidence in case something else happens. Edit. We do have a security system now. We've changed the locks. We're getting a safe for his watches and the more valuable stuff. We planned on moving by the end of the year, and none of my family will know where I live now. I don't feel safe here, knowing 2 random men know where I live. My fiance also says that we're getting a guard dog. We were already talking about getting a dog. No, this isn't just for guarding. We wanted one before, but we were waiting until we moved. Also, I have not gotten my things back. As of yet, hopefully. I am calling around to local pawn shops, checking Facebook, Craigslist, all of it. If this had been someone else's home, niece could have been seriously hurt. Hopefully this was a wake-up call. If she needed money, she could have asked me, not broken into my home with 2 men who are still on the streets and could come back at any moment and do Lord knows what. Not the idiot. Your niece has some serious issues, and she needs to understand actions have consequences. You were incredibly generous to give them 2 days grace. Your sister and husband have no right to be rude and threatening. Maybe they can use that energy to deal with your niece. Yeah, stellar parenting. Sis and her hubby are both failures. Those Rolexes are going to be worth a lot of money, though. Have you considered taking them to court or a similar civil lawsuit if the items cannot be replaced? From the sound of it, at least one of the items is priceless, but perhaps you could get some compensation for the stolen watches. Even stealing someone's designer dog can easily become a felony. A mid-tier Rolex alone would be 1, but 2. And grandma's ring. I hope the judge smacks them all into jail. I own 2 Rolex watches, and I'd lose my mind if someone stole them from me. That could be 10 or 12K a watch, depending on the model. I bet they sold them for a couple of $100 a piece, too. And for crying out loud, you don't have kids, so you don't understand? What's not to understand? She broke into your house with 2 accomplices, and they stole numerous valuable items. Now you feel violated and unsafe in your own home. Your sister and your mother are idiots big time. Do what you must to reclaim your property and peace of mind. My husband, 38, and I, 37 female, have been married for 11 years and have 2 daughters, a preschooler and a pre-tween. I'm currently 12 weeks pregnant with our 3rd child. I just had an ultrasound, and we were able to determine the gender of the baby, a little boy. We found out the gender of all of our children this way. My husband's also a 3rd, as in John Smith III. Before we got married and discussed kids, he made it very clear that passing down his name was very important to him if we had a son. At the time, I thought it was really cute and adorable how much pride he took in it, since most guys don't really care about that sort of sentimental stuff. But as the years have gone by, I've definitely cooled on the idea quite a bit, and I don't want our son to be named after my husband that way. Obviously, with our first 2 kids, we didn't even have to think about it, but when we were choosing names for our daughters, my husband was very much in the, you can take the lead on naming our daughter, because I already have the name picked out if we have a son camp. It's not like he wasn't involved in naming our daughters, but he deferred to my opinion. So when we found out we were having a boy, my husband was very excited. On the car ride home after the ultrasound, it was all he could talk about. He was giddy like a teenager, talking about how proud he would be of sharing his name with his son. I don't know if it was the best time to bring this up, but I had one of those, yeah, about that moments. I told him I knew we had talked about this many times before with our kids, and that I technically agreed to it years ago, but I didn't think I wanted to name our son the same as my husband. I don't think I've ever seen anyone's mood change so quickly and visibly as my husband's did at that moment. It was like all the joy went out of his body all at once. I told him I didn't want our son to be a 4th. It seems tacky and has weird aristocratic vibes that just don't seem right to me. I told him I wasn't totally against the idea, but I didn't just want to agree to it now because I wanted time to think about other names too. He took that as me basically saying that I'm going back on our years-long agreement and that there's no way we're naming our son after him. He said this is me telling him maybe, when I really mean no. This has taken all of his excitement about the baby away. He's been withdrawn and quiet with me ever since. When I try to talk to him about it, he tells me he has nothing to say because he's been very clear about where he stands on this, and he feels betrayed by my change of heart. I asked him if we want to think about some other names together, and he told me to give him a list, and he'd look at it when he could. I know I technically agreed to this years ago, but it just doesn't feel right to me anymore. Let me understand. You made an agreement with your husband. You got to name the girls. He would name a boy. You benefited from this agreement twice. Now when it's his turn to benefit, you have some moral objection to naming a kid the 4th? You don't like the weird aristocratic vibes. I don't necessarily disagree with you about that, by the way. But surely, 4 years ago when you had your second child, you felt those same vibes. But you nonetheless took the lead in naming your daughter without, at that time, saying, I feel weird about the 4th thing, so why don't you take the lead on this one, honey? Yeah, you are the idiot. This guy spent years looking forward to this, and now that it's finally here, she's crushed his expectations. This is so mean of OP. I can't imagine the disappointment and sadness of such a broken trust. What the heck is she talking about aristocracy? What country is she in? Namesakes come with cute names. Junior, Trip, Ivy. The kid can literally pick any nickname he wants when he's in school. It's a family tree. It's not just snubbing the father. It's a big screw you to his childhood dream, his dad, and his granddad. She broke a promise in a horrible way. Boo-hoo. These weird legacy names need to die out. OP's not the idiot. It's one of the most self-involved, arrogant practices I've ever seen. It's creepy how males see their sons as heirs and direct bloodlines, and they see their daughters differently. I'd be insanely embarrassed for the rest of my life if I had to name a kid like that. Every time I'd introduce him, I'd cringe and would probably start using a nickname permanently. I, 28 female, have a 4-month-old German Shepherd puppy. For context, our family dog was of the same breed, and we raised him from when he was 2 months old. Unfortunately, he passed 2 years ago. Last month, I had to go to work in person out of the blue. I got very little notice, so I called my mom and asked her if she could take care of the puppy for me. She agreed and came over. I told her he was unvaccinated and to be careful. I went to work and I messaged her every now and then to ask how they were doing. She responded with a thumbs up emoji every time. I came back to an empty house and panicked, thinking something had happened to both of them, or there was an emergency and they had to go to the vet. But she didn't pick up. Her phone was switched off. I went over to my neighbors and asked them if they knew anything, and they said they had seen my mom taking the puppy out on a leash. I started walking to the nearby public park, and what do you know? My mom was there with the puppy and 2 other dogs. I went over and asked her why she didn't pick up, and she laughed and said her phone was dead because she was too busy with the puppy to charge it. When we got home, I asked her why she took him outside, even though I told her not to. She said I never explicitly told her not to, and she turned it around on me, saying, "This is how you repay a favor?" She said the puppy looked antsy, being all cooped up in the house. I have a substantial backyard. I left it at that, and the next day, I took the puppy to the vet. All was clear at the time, but 4 days later, the puppy started showing symptoms, and it turned out he caught parvo. The poor thing went through a lot, but he's been all right for a week now. A couple of days ago, I left him with a sitter to attend the fam's Easter celebration, and to note at this point, I hadn't communicated with my mom since the day of. My cousin asked me how the puppy was doing, and I told her everything. Word got around, and now people are condemning my mom for her actions, and honestly, I couldn't care less. Mom called me today and demanded I make things clear with other people, and that it wasn't her fault my puppy fell sick and could have died. I asked for an apology, because even if she didn't mean for it to happen, the puppy did suffer. She declined. I blocked her. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Unfortunately, we see this with pets and children all the time. Grandparents or other mature adults think they know better than the younger generation with whom they interact and completely disregard directions about diet, play, sleep, and general care. It's disrespectful. If your mom didn't know that young unvaccinated dogs should not be around other dogs, she should have asked. But to your point, she's a prior dog owner herself, so that root cause falls flat quickly. Do I think your cousin is a blabbermouth who needs to shut her pie hole? Yes, I do. One thing to consider is how much you tell her that you don't want being repeated in an uncontrolled manner. But saying something when asked about it doesn't make you an idiot. Nope. Mom deserved to be put on blast. If only OP was mad at her, she'd brush it off, is OP being too precious about the puppy. With the whole family talking about it, she's now perfectly clear that she should not have done it, which is the perfect way to make sure it doesn't happen again. Don't do anything you'd be ashamed to tell the whole world. I think OP's the idiot. There's no indication that the mother didn't think she was or wasn't being careful. It was never mentioned where OP said, "Mom, I had mentioned being careful. Why would you go outside?" What if Mom says, "This was the guidance I was given 15 years ago with our dog. I thought I was being careful. Those dogs had their full vaccination schedule. I misunderstood. I'm sorry. You didn't explicitly mention not going outside. I clearly made this conversation up. There wasn't an attempt at understanding, just accusations." I, male 29, was adopted out of foster care as a preschooler. I was first placed in foster care as an infant. My birth parents willingly surrendered me to the state, got me back, and then lost me to CPS within a few weeks of being returned to them. Their extended families were asked if they would like to raise me, and everyone on both sides who was contacted, and the list was extensive, said no. So, I was placed back into foster care, and after 2 weeks of a temporary placement, I found my parents. I was almost a toddler at the time. My parents were the best parents anyone could ask for. I have 3 siblings from my parents. 2 were their bio kids, and 1 was also a kid they adopted from foster care. My family is very close today, and it includes a very, very large extended family where my sister and I, adopted from foster care, were treated as their own and no different than the blood grandkids. It was a very happy life. My birth parents went on to have 3 additional children who are now 22, 20, and 19. My birth siblings sought me out 2 years ago on social media and told me they wanted us to be a family. I expressed at the time that I had 0 interest in this. A few months after this, I got another DM from them, but this time with a Word document attached, and it contained this very heartfelt explanation of how they had always been aware that I existed and how their childhood had not been the best, but they valued each other, and how they longed for me to be a part of their lives, and how they felt we were robbed of growing up together. I did not respond to this right away because it read as something from the heart, but I disagreed with them and did not feel robbed, so I didn't want to be a jerk. I told them I needed some time, and when I did respond, I told them I had a very happy life and a wonderful family, and I was sorry not to share their sentiments. They asked if we could meet one time, and I agreed, and it happened a couple of weeks ago. They were upset that my siblings were nearby for moral support, and they were upset that I didn't want to show up ready to hug and embrace them. They asked me how I could be happy being adopted and raised in another family when I had real blood siblings, etc. They asked me how I could express joy because of my adoption knowing this. I explained again that my life was happy and that I wouldn't trade my family for the world, especially given their parents' treatment of me. They told me I should want them and apologize for making it seem like I don't. I told them I owe them no apology or expression of regret for being adopted while they were kept. Of course, this was not what they wanted to hear, and I left because they clearly wanted to argue after that. My siblings, parents, and wife have supported me since then, but some fellow adoptee friends said I was too harsh, and a few of them said that most of us adoptees would love to have such easy access to our birth families, and I was rude to mine and threw them away. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Sounds like bio siblings are looking for you to fill a hole in their lives, but that hole is likely a bottomless pit from a lifetime of parental neglect. Not your job. You didn't throw anyone away. Your biological parents are the ones that bear the responsibility of your being adopted. Also, some jealousies involved here. They probably on some level wish they had been rescued as well. Jealousy? Or somebody needs a kidney? Or money? The fact that some adoptees wish to find their birth families and struggle to do so is irrelevant. You are not obligated to have a specific type of reaction to your birth family, especially given the pressure they're applying to you to honor what other adoptees might want. That seems really misguided. I'm very happy for you that your family is so wonderful. Oh, please. First and foremost, no one gets to put their wants on you. Their parental rights were terminated, and it's despicable of them that they raised their other children thinking of you as a long-lost sibling or something. It's their fault that these children have expectations of you. My biological mother did the same thing with her other children. She told them I was stolen from her. She willingly signed the adoption paperwork, LOL, that I was their big sister, and that she wanted us all to be together. A load of garbage to make herself feel better.